Welcome back to English 9.
I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I am a gazelle, so swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows ever on. My son Noah built New Ark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself and was Jesus. Men intone my loving name. All praises, all praises. I am the one who would save. I sow diamonds in my backyard. My boughs deliver uranium. The filings from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal, I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
And that was Ecotripping by Nikki Giovanni. One version of it, at least. It's actually not her reading it. It was a version that somebody took and made into a song with the music and everything. I really liked it. Thought I had to play it. We will see another version of that same poem in just a moment. But today we are doing identity poems, as you could tell, perhaps by that song. We are going to be writing poetry that expresses who we are, which I think a lot of people would say is one of the most important parts of poetry, revealing yourself to the world. So, if this is the first one you're watching, this is number 4 actually, so you might want to go back, watch 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you go to the YouTube channel that this is connected to, you'll see there's a playlist that has all of them in order. It's clearly labeled. I try to make it clearly labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so you can watch those, complete those assignments, and I'd love to see your poems. Even if it's late, it's totally cool. I understand a lot of things are going on with you guys. So, that being said, we are going to get right into it. The way it's going to work is just like it's been working for the past couple of these. First of all, I'm going to go through some definitions, some things you might be familiar with, some may be new, probably pretty familiar with these. And then we are going to listen to that poem by Nikki Giovanni. We're going to listen to her read it. And once we listen to her read it, I'm going to go over it very briefly. I'm going to try and keep my thoughts brief. I want to keep this video around 15 or so minutes. We'll see if it happens or not. So I'll keep my thoughts brief, just give you a couple of examples of how you could analyze that poem. And then the last thing is, once you finish this video, you want to go on a Google Classroom, open up the other poems I've listed. You want to read all of them, and then choose one of them to analyze in more depth, and then write your own version of it on that document that's attached as well. I look forward to reading your poems. I look forward to just seeing what you say about yourself. I think this is one of the most important weeks we've done. I know it can be scary putting yourself out there, and I totally understand that. Remember, if you want me to read your poem out loud and with your name on it, just simply let me know. Okay, so let's move on to those definitions. Okay, so our first vocab word is actually a review word, hyperbole. We've talked about this in class. It means exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally, such as, I'm so hungry I could eat a wolf. It's really just supposed to, like, in an exaggerated way, express how hungry you are. So hyperbole is used in a lot of poetry to really show the writer's confidence or show how seriously they mean something. When I think of hyperbole, one of the first artists I think of, as far as poets or artists are, is Kanye. He uses a lot of hyperbole. For example, believe it or not, I know a lot of people talk about Kanye's arrogance, but I don't think he meant to be taken literally there, as he actually follows up as the song goes on. So he really just pushes his confidence there, he pushes what he says about himself, and then it kind of lays the foundation for the rest of the poem/song. The next vocab word is also a review. It's illusion. Illusion. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this in class. An illusion is an expression designed to call something to mind, generally without mentioning it explicitly. It's an indirect or passing reference. So it's like when you refer to something, not explicitly, generally, but like you're bringing it into your text. You're mentioning another person, a real life person. You're mentioning a fictional person. You're mentioning something from a book, a movie, to kind of remind your reader of that scene, maybe bring more power in, or just familiarity. For example, in Black Panther, at one point Shuri references, maybe you could say it's an illusion, the "what are those" meme when she talks about his shoes. So that's one example. Another example is Kendrick Lamar in his song "The Blacker the Berry," which is already an illusion, when he actually uses that line and he says, he's directly referencing anywhere from the original novel, where I believe that phrase came from, or the phrase as incredibly popularized by Tupac, and just using that line instead of saying something, he could have said something similar, but he used that explicit line, which immediately to anybody listening to it would call to reference, like I said, Tupac. They would maybe go back to the novel, they'd go back to like the phrase and its popularity, and in the time it was extremely popular. So we can use allusions in our poetry to really bring our reader into the poem. We can help them be familiar with what we're talking about, or we can really drive them to a specific emotion or scene by referencing something that happened in that emotion or scene and making our reader think about it. Allusions are very powerful in poetry. Final one is not really a definition, but it is. It's an extended metaphor. It is what it is. It's a metaphor that continues throughout a series of sentences in a paragraph or lines in a poem. So where there's simple metaphors like "it's raining cats and dogs," an extended metaphor would be if somebody took that idea, "raining cats and dogs," and just like wrote an entire 2 or 3 paragraphs or an entire poem just completely referencing that idea. So an extended metaphor is just a metaphor that's drawn out. They keep going with that same idea, that same example, that same connection. So those are our 3 definitions for today, and we'll talk about each of them as we go through this poem, which of course is Nikki Giovanni's Ecotripping. Hey, we are going to be listening to Ecotripping by Nikki Giovanni. She's going to be reading it herself. I'll be rolling down this document just like I did last time. So this is Ecotripping by Nikki Giovanni.
I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I am a gazelle. So swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows ever on. My son Noah built Newark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself, and was Jesus, men intone my loving name. All praises, I am the one who would save. I sow diamonds in my backyard. My bowels deliver uranium. The filings from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east, and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned, and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
So, that was Nikki Giovanni's Ecotripping, and now let's try and talk more about it. Okay, so, Ecotripping by Nikki Giovanni. Right in the beginning, for me, the first thing that stood out to me and kind of informed me about how this poem was going to go was when she says, I was born in the Congo. if you know anything about Nikki Giovanni, and we've actually read a poem of hers before, we know she wasn't. She was born in Tennessee. So right away, that's an alert to us that she's doing something in this poem where she's not explicitly talking about her own physical, basic, very specific self. She's doing something. She's in fact probably using a metaphor. She's metaphorically speaking about herself in a manner of ways, and she continues this metaphorical way of speaking about herself as her identity throughout the entirety of this poem. So this poem, very much so, is a massive extended metaphor where Nikki Giovanni talks about her identity in a metaphorical way. And there's a very real sense to what she's saying, but also there's a very metaphorical sense to it as well. So right away, this poem is metaphorical. She's trying to show us something about herself through this comparison to other things. And one of the first things that jumps out to me as we continue is, right away she says she walks the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx, so she's building these massive things, and she says, I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. So it's obviously, she's using, to a certain extent, hyperbole here. So tough, and she really overemphasizes how tough this is to really drive home her point. And what's that point? To me, it seems like she's saying she is so brilliant, enough for stars, which are also brilliant, to recognize it. So this star, which only glows, it's not working. I don't know why it's not. This star that only glows every 100 years is recognizing her by falling into the center of her pyramid, giving this perfect divine light. It recognizes a fellow star, in a sense. So she uses this hyperbole to describe this star to reflect back on herself. And she does that a lot as we continue. She says she sits on the throne, drinking nectar. She uses a lot of hyperbole. She crossed it in 2 hours over here, the Sahara Desert. She sewed diamonds in my backyard. She delivered uranium. We'll get more into that in a sec. But another thing that very quickly jumped out to me was that she references, and you'll see I bolded them, Allah, Nefertiti. As we go down, she also says Noah and Jesus. These are all religious icons, religious people. What she's doing here is she is using allusions to, first of all, bring her reader into this poem. A lot of readers might be familiar with Allah. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Allah. Others might be familiar with Jesus. Others might be familiar with Noah, or even Nefertiti. And so she's bringing that familiarity into this poem, but she's also associating herself with their majesty, with their worship. And so again, there's that hyperbole where she's kind of like setting herself up as a divine being, a god, and she does it through the use of these allusions. She references to things that her readers would understand. And this actually is further emphasized just down here where she says, I caught a cold and blue, my nose giving oil to the Arab world. So now she's taking on these divine traits. She's so otherworldly, so transcendent, that she is actually creating oil. She is creating the world, in a sense. So it ends up right here where she kind of wraps it up and says, I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. And she kind of just puts it all into words, like sums it all up. She's divine, she's perfect, she's ethereal. Again, I'm sure she'd be the first to tell you that she's not 100% these things, but she's brashly putting her identity out there, and we'll talk about why in just a sec. So the last thing I'd say is, right here, another line that stood out to me. I didn't bold it, but it's, I am a beautiful woman. And if you read through the poem, you'll see several phrases like this that are kind of simpler. A little bit almost like you're like, whoa, that's kind of... She just said she was Nefertiti, and now she's just saying, I'm a beautiful woman. And I think these are confident, brash, hyperbolic statements because she's grown up in a world, the United States, that wants to constantly shut her down. She's been through it. If you remember what she talks about in her other poem, though, she tries not to focus on that. She resists the narrative of just focusing on what she's been through, and instead she pushes herself against that critique by asserting the joy, like we saw in her last poem that she's been through, but also here, how she is an incredible person, a beautiful woman, a powerful person, a person that resists these narratives, resists this destructive forces that are pushing her back, in possibly the most powerful way possible. So that's what I would get from this poem, that she is confident in herself, she is pushing back, she is rejecting the narrative that's always pushed down on her, and she is instead proud of who she is, she takes pride in it, and she ultimately is like, she can fly like a bird in the sky. And so this has been Ecotripping by Nikki Giovanni. I hope you saw that she used the metaphor throughout this poem. She also used hyperbole, and she used allusions to really express her identity in a confident, creative, interesting way that builds familiarity with the reader, but also allows them to step into the world and understand what she's like. So, that was Ecotripping. Right now since you've watched the video, here's what you need to do next. You need to read or listen to all the poems that are listed on Google Classroom, all of them. Some of them you will see are just videos of the poems. There's no lyrics. You just want to listen to that. And if you choose to spend more time with that poem, you just want to listen to it several times. So please read or listen. And if there is a listening option, please do that. I think it's really important you listen to poems. So listen to the poems, all of them, and then just choose one to study more in depth. You want to choose that one poem and just really break it down as much as you can. Maybe it's just a spoken word poem and there's no lyrics. You can actually write down the lyrics if you want to and really spend some time with them. Once you've done that, you want to open up the assignment called 4, Identity Poetry, and you want to answer the questions about that poem. And then finally, just like we've been doing all this time, write your own identity poem, be confident, express yourself, say what you want to say about who you are, where you come from, anything you want to say. Again, if you want me to read it out loud and give your name to it, I can do that. Just make sure you tell me that. I'm really looking forward to reading your poems. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you say about yourself. And I hope you have some fun while you do it. Try to use hyperbole, try to use metaphors, try to use allusions as you go. And I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Have an excellent day. This has been number 4, Identity Poetry.